Today on Locked On Red Wings, there was post-practice media availability, and Derek Lalonde spoke. He gave updates on injuries, players missing, as well as his overall thoughts on the first three games. We'll break that down for you. Also, I'm going to get up on a soapbox about these digital ads, but I have a strong feeling that I'm actually in the majority on this one. And then finally, when we got time, if not, we can push it to next episode. But we want to talk about a little bit Filip Zadina's play in the first game, his first game.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for WWJ News Radio 950, while Scotty is the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's an off day. Our first off day episode since, Thursday last week. Obviously, we had the weekend there, so we didn't do recordings on Friday or Saturday. But it feels a little weird, even though we had 3 months of just constant off days and coming up with things to talk about. The first off day of the season, 3 games in, we're kind of like looking around. We're like, where's the content? What do we talk about? Like, we're already out of practice.
Lalonde helped a lot.
Lalonde did help a lot, as they did have a practice today, and he gave media availability afterwards where he spoke. And he's talked a lot about the first 3 games, and he reflected a lot of our thoughts from yesterday's episode on it. And we're going to talk about that. I also want to talk about these digital ads that are on the boards, Scotty. And I told you going in that I'm going to get up on a soapbox. I'm going to monologue. Obviously, I want to get your thoughts too, because you're probably a little bit more level-headed. You're probably more or less, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're probably not as heated about it as I am. I can almost tell.
After the jersey ad thing, I have a hard time believing that I am, but yeah.
I'll make sure that I do that right after we get to our ads.
There you go.
And then segment 3, depending on how long we go with the first 2 segments, we're going to talk a little bit about Filip Zadina, but we can push that to tomorrow if we have to, because, again, we got 3 straight days off until the Blackhawks game on Friday. But let's start with the media availability with Derek Lalonde. The thing that I took away, the biggest takeaway I had from this game, Scotty, or this media availability rather, was that Derek Lalonde really feels like the same way we did after these first 3 games. He was really impressed with the effort and the drive in games 1 and 2. Game 3, he thought that he said they failed to get momentum. They would score, and then it would be followed up by King's goal. They would kill a penalty, and it would be a goal against. And he said after that game, he was a little bit disappointed, but then he went back and watched the tape, and he was so incredibly impressed with the heart on that team. He said 3 games in 4 days is really tough, and your legs are probably lagging. So that probably had a lot to do with the fact that if your legs are lagging, your brain's lagging. Your mind's going to have fatigued right after that. And so to hear him say all these things we noticed, like he talked about how the defense didn't play all that well in that game, but the offense, they scored 4 goals. He said, you score 4 goals at home, normally you win. It was really reassuring to hear him say honestly too at that, which is another thing that we got to talk about with Newsy, is that he is very blunt and honest with everything. Like, if he sees something, he will say it in the media availability, and I really appreciate that. And he saw everything we saw, which I find really reassuring, not because, we were right, but because it shows that he is not just like watching the game, but he's understanding the game, and that he understands that, like, this team lost that game and they got outplayed, but they also showed a hell of a lot of heart and fight to get back in that game, and they stole a point. I think he even said that they got away with a point in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's certainly something that I feel like everybody noticed, and anybody could have noticed. Like that was blatant, which is awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the fact that it was blatant, the fact that it was so obvious is great news. I like the bluntness of coaches. That's always a cool thing. credit where credit is due. I don't know if this is like a hot take. I always thought Blashill was pretty blunt and straightforward as well. So for like whatever that is worth, I'm not advocating for Blashill at this point. That ship has sailed, and I'm very glad Lalonde is here. But I think that that's a trait that our last two head coaches have had as well, and so it's nice to see that continued. And not a slight on anyone there, more of just like raising up other coaches we've had too. I think that that's something that we've been very fortunate with, because there are, especially if you're a Tigers fan, like there's a lot of front office and coaches that just give coach speak and aren't very blunt and straightforward and try to sugarcoat everything and whatnot. And I feel like the Red Wings coaching tree over the last while, honestly, has been pretty straightforward dudes, which I think is kind of nice. But yeah, he certainly is that, and it's really nice to see. And it's great now because we've only had positive stuff to say. So we'll see if everybody keeps the same energy when there's a lot of bad stuff to say. But
Right. It's been a good
hopefully there
start.
isn't. Right. Hopefully there isn't much bad to say. But yeah, I think the fact that he was able to admit that he went back and watched and liked how much fight everybody had and be able to then vocalize that to the team was obviously great. It's not a big, front page news story thing, but it's awesome to hear. And I think that's super cool. And like I said, the biggest thing was just that it's very true. Like that is everybody saw it, and that's awesome to know.
Well, and I think the part that I like about the fact that everything we saw, he reiterated in the media availability, is because it felt like it maybe in the past when every Red Wings fan, because like you said, everyone saw it. Everyone, it wasn't just us saying that. Everyone was saying the same exact thing about that game last night and the games this weekend, is the fact that he goes out there and he says those things, and it's not like a stubbornness, a resistance to change. And I mean, that's one thing that ultimately sank Blashill's ship. It was a resistance to change. You see something broken and you don't do anything to fix it. Granted, last year they had a lack of depth, absolute lack of depth. But this year they don't have that. But he sees that what everyone else is seeing, he sees that it's broken, and he'll be like, oh yeah, this wasn't working. This was working really well. And that shows that he's just like, okay, well, now I know what to work on. And I feel like that just reassured me. And that's why I really liked hearing him repeat what everybody was already saying. Like his stubbornness not to be like, oh, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. I really appreciated that. He also, of course, pointed out the Dylan Larkin play, and his thought process was the same as by the way, I didn't say this on yesterday's episode, Scotty. When Arvidsson was going in for the goal, I was literally about to text you, okay, let's just go. Like, let's just go.
I kid you not. Heck of a save. I kid you not. I was standing in front of the TV, and when he got the puck and started breaking to the net, I didn't see it live.
Oh yeah,
I've seen it a million times on replay now. I did not see the play live because he started breaking in the net, and I turned around and said out loud, "Game over." Started grabbing my stuff to go come back here and get ready to go on air. I literally had my back turned to the TV, and I just hear, "Oh my goodness!" And I was like, "What is happening?" And then they showed the replay and whatnot, but I quite literally did not see it live because I started walking away from my television. I was like, all right, they lost, like whatever. Let's go talk about it.
I was like in my recliner like this, and I just like leaned forward and I like looked over and I got my phone. And as that was happening, like I look up and Dylan Larkin's just on the ice. And so, and Lalonde said the same exact thing. He was like, oh, well, game over. This is a loss. It will starting to look to reflections. And he saw Dylan Larkin do that. And he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, like he even said, like Dylan Larkin got us a point. Like,
straight
it was
up
incredible. It's just funny. I mean, obviously everyone's going to have that reaction, right? Like that should have been a goal. Like 99% of the time, that's a goal. So I continue to love that all the way. He also spoke of, let's say it real quick before we talked to you guys today about BetOnline, but they asked him about new additions and how the impact of the new additions is having on the team. Something we also talked about last night. And they asked him if he was expecting the offensive production that he was out of Oli Mata. And he goes, no, not at all, which is great. But he goes, I believe he said something along the lines of like, shows the team's heart. It shows the team's heart. And he talked about the new additions as well, like guys like Sherrod, guys like Kopp. They're brought in for a reason, and they're absolutely showing up. And he didn't bring up Perron's name, but Perron's absolutely grouped in with those guys as guys who have brought in and made an immediate difference. And we talked about it last night, but God, the new additions are making a huge difference in this
Yeah, massive.
team so far. I mean, you take those guys off this team, so many of the goals don't happen this season. So many. Three of the goals don't happen last night because there were 2 goals and 1 assist for Perron alone.
Yeah,
It's
a much
incredible.
different team. It's a much different team.
When we come back, we're going to talk to you guys about digital ads and why they are my new most hated thing. But first, I got to talk to you
We have
guys
an ad.
about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to BetOnline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. And yes, I understand the irony of that situation. It was played into there, guys. It was played into. It was fun. But yeah, so
we have fun around here.
We try to. You have fun. Sometimes not me. But that's only because I'm dealing with you.
I feel like most people feel that way.
So the NHL started this year. They're just piling on at the digital ads. Obviously, jersey ads started this year. I've given you my whole tirade on that. Thankfully, Red Wings don't have a jersey ad yet. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but they don't have it yet. And every day we don't have one, I'm going to be grateful. But they also decided in their TV deals that they were going to have ads on the boards, superimposed over the ads that are already on the boards. And we already have ads on the ice, like physically on the ice. We have the ads physically on the boards. We have the digital ads superimposed on the glass. Originally, it was just behind the net, but now it's also along the blue line. I don't know if you've seen that. They have the ads superimposed on by the blue line. And now they also have the ads superimposed over the ads on the boards, which kind of defeats the purpose of having the ads on the boards, except for the people who are actually at the game. But the point still is like to put that in people's face. Like, that's where my problem begins, right? Are we at a point now with these digital ads, Scotty, that we have no more space to put ads other than on the boards over top of ads that already exist? Like, and I said it with helmet ads and I said it with the jersey ads, but when is too far? And I mean, obviously, I know the answer is never, because the capitalism is king and we bow to the almighty dollar in America. That's just how the economic system is in this country, for better and for worse. It's great, but it's also awful. Like every economic system, it has its downfalls. We are witnessing a downfall right now in the fact that they're superimposing, not just, if it was, I feel like it was stationary digital ads, I could handle it. Like if it was like, I don't like the ones that are on the ice by the blue line because they don't stay put anyways, even though they're supposed to be stationary. Like they sometimes lag with the camera movement, but at least they don't like change or move. The ones on the boards will straight up move as the play's happening. And because it's like a green screen effect, sometimes when players are wearing like their whites and they're up against the boards, the ad will superimpose over the players along the boards. It's just, it's at a layer where it's honestly like, the jersey ads, I would not have been able to notice from that wide shot of them playing. That one was more of a, I don't want them tainting the sanctity of the game. And I can admit that. And I still hold that belief. But this one, this digital ad on the boards, if they could make it work, I wouldn't mind so much, except for the fact that right now it's not working. And it is ruining the viewing experience of the game for so many, with the fact that the motion of the ads is distracting. They superimpose over the players when they're along the boards. And not to mention that in a lot of the cases, there's no motion blur. So when the camera shifts and all the players are moving, they stay perfectly clear. And that really messes with your eyes. So it's just, how can the NHL be doing everything so wrong Everything's so wrong. I mean, I'm at my wit's end when it comes to this team or this game where they refuse to market themselves. And this is going on a wider tangent and a bigger soapbox. There were games in Prague, Scotty, between the San Jose Sharks and the Nashville Predators. The same day, there was a preseason game with the Detroit Red Wings. When I saw that game in Prague was happening, one, I completely forgot those games in Prague were happening until they were happening because the NHL did not market it at all outside of the NHL network, maybe some ESPN ads, but no, there was no marketing for it. And then it finally comes, and I think, oh, it must be a preseason game. Nope. Those were regular season games happening in Prague that I did not know about because they did not market it at all the same time as preseason games are going on a week before everyone else started the regular season. So that is really crappy marketing. And they're not doing anything to lower the cost of the game to get more people in at the ground floor to grow the game. You want to grow the game, you got to lower the cost of the game. You know what's not lowering the cost of the game? Digital ads on the boards. They're not doing anything. They keep saying, like, we have to recoup the money from COVID. You want to recoup the money from COVID? Get more people to want to watch hockey. You have the ESPN partnership, and you can't even watch the games on ESPN. It gets pushed to ESPN Plus. Like, it blows my mind that they'll do everything but the few things they need to do to make this sport big. This sport is the most exciting. And I'm frustrated because I love the sport so much. But what they're doing or what they're not doing makes no sense. This sport has the ability to be the best sport in the world with how fast-paced it is, with how physical it is, with how skilled it is. And they're just like, nah, we're not going to tell people about it. We're not going to make it affordable for people to play. We're just going to keep slapping ads on everything possible to make up that lost money. There you go. I'm good. I got it off my chest.
That was 7 minutes, brother. That's solid.
I'm so sick and tired of it. I understand that ads are a thing and they're going to be a thing, but it gets to a point where it's genuinely impacting the viewing experience and it's making it hard to watch. Will I say people are going to stop watching? No, because I'm still a hockey lunatic in the end, and that's probably what they're hoping. I mean, maybe it gets to a point where I say it's too much. I mean, this is really bad, but I'm sure they'll fix it to a point where it's watchable. But this is incredible. Like, it's insane, man. It's just how bad this looks with these ads on the boards. Absolutely gross.
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
I love it. No, I'm glad. Pro ads. No. First off, I think you're slightly off base in nothing in what you just said. I think you're off base in the sense that in the cold open, you made it sound like you weren't in the majority with the jersey ads. I think you've been in the majority with both of these. I think I was in I wasn't pro jersey ads. I was just like, I don't really care.
I feel like helmet ads were a little bit more 50-50, but jersey ads, I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that too. And with this one, so there's a point you made that I think is the most important part of this whole thing. And that's that the jersey ads is about loving the game of hockey, loving the tradition of the Detroit Red Wings, the sanctity of the game, all that, right? That's why people don't want jersey ads, because you don't want anything to touch the winged wheel sweater. But from the bird's eye view while you're watching the game, you would not have noticed. Like, and if it does happen, you won't notice. People got upset at me last time when I said that. I don't care. It's true. You're not going to notice while you're watching.
It is true. That one, like I said, that one's just from
objectively, you will not care while you're watching. But this one is incredibly different because it directly affects the viewer experience.
Yeah.
Directly. And on paper, it is a way to get more ads cycled through over the course of a game, right? There are some baseball stadiums that have like green screens behind home plate now, so that they
Mhm.
can just like cycle through, a different ad an inning instead of just like one like stay put ad, or like they have like digital ads on pitcher's mound now in baseball. They have like greens, not green screen, but like digitally in placed like advertisements on the back of pitcher's mound
Yep,
too,
I've
and they
seen
can
those.
cycle through a couple of those. Those, like, you don't notice those. Like I'm some people might watch baseball all the time, and that's like the first time I'm even telling you that this exists and that you're realizing it. Like that like people don't, because they're not, the strike zone is not presented to you by Chevy and like with a giant like logo on it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, they don't change the shape of the strike zone to the Chevy logo.
right. The shape of the strike zone is not the word built for tough. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's not directly affecting anything. It's just like, oh, like, yeah, behind home plate where there have always been ads, and like along the boards where for a long time there have been ads, but now you are, like you said, it is different because it is the only advertising attempt I have seen really in any sport where it is directly, like, significantly hindering the viewing ability, like viewership. It's an eyesore, which, like, at some point, if it's just really ugly, at some point you'll be like, oh, like, that's ugly, but whatever, I'll get over it. It's a whole nother thing to be like, I literally, like, can't watch this because when the puck goes in the corner, I don't know what's happening. Like, that's a completely different thing, and that's terrible. And if they could just find a way to actually keep them on the boards, maybe it is making all the boards green. I don't know, but like, make it so that it's at least like, if they made it so that it was just in place, and like it's not going to wobble when the camera wobbles, and it's not going to get way off, like kiltered and off centered. And when players are pushed up against the boards, they're not going to turn into an advertisement. Like, as if that's possible, then like, sure, if it doesn't affect my viewing experience, do whatever you need to do to grow the game, and to get, whatever. Do whatever you need to do to make money. Fine. I love watching this sport. If that's what needs to be done, fine. But this is literally affecting how you watch the game of hockey. And I'm not trying to make it sound like it's unwatchable. I like, it's not. It's not an unwatchable product. And like, oh my goodness, I have to turn this off. But like, it is, when the puck goes in certain places, you're like, oh my goodness, this is disgusting.
If
And
there's
I
a big
hate it.
scrum in the corners, it
Right.
gets
Yeah,
messy.
you don't know what's happening. So like, that's where my problem lies. Like, the premise of it, whatever. Like, the ads are always going to be here. They're always going to be a thing. And I've seen it in all sports. It's a thing, and they have their own unique ways of putting sponsorships out there. And like I said, if there was a way to just guarantee that it's going to stay in place and be where it is, and not look like a 3D image that's like a foot away from the board itself, and like just be terrible, then like that's a different conversation. Because like, on paper, it, like, that is a way to get more ads on television and to make more money. So like, yeah, that's probably what they should be doing, but not with the current. I don't know if it's a technological thing, like we're just not advanced enough to where like that
They
it's
just
gonna
didn't
look good.
troubleshoot it enough. That's all it
Right.
was.
I don't know. Remember in like, man, 2004 maybe. Somebody in the comments will know the exact year. But when they tried the puck tail,
I knew exactly you were going to go there. I thought
right,
the same
right. So
thing.
like, everybody was like, "Oh, we're gonna have the puck tail," because it's like, it's infamous, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
part of hockey lore. Like, everybody knows the puck tail here, and like, they tried it for a little bit, and it was so terrible that we were like, "We gotta stop. Puck tail sucks." This this won't happen because the puck tail didn't make them millions of dollars, so like, they're not gonna do that. But like, this feels like that kind of a thing where like, oh my goodness, dude, like, this is just terrible. Like, it is such an eyesore, and it does like legitimately knock down the viewing experience, which is like the biggest thing that everyone's trying to avoid, and the biggest problem of the whole thing. So yeah, like, similar viewpoint to before. Like eventually, if the technology was right and it wasn't making it so ridiculous to watch, then like, yeah, like do it and have fun and whatever. But like at the present moment, it is a terrible product.
Yeah, I think the thing that I keep going back to with it too, Scotty, is like I know eventually the technology will get good enough that it's not as distracting, but it's the fact that they attempted this. Like we didn't see it all throughout the preseason, right? I mean, I didn't notice it at
Well,
all.
I mean, a lot of the
Granted, only like
preseason
3
games were just
games.
like camcorder from the
Yeah.
press box games. Yeah, no.
So there was like no testing of this at all, at least that
There's no
we
lead
know
up.
of.
Yeah.
And whatever testing they did do was obviously not enough because it still looks like junk. And then it's just the idea that we are literally overlaying ads on top of ads. Like that is such a crazy idea to me. We're
Yeah,
literally
I don't
putting
know if
more
that's
ads
like a
on
difference
top of
of
other ads.
right. I don't know if that's like oh, like these are the ads for in person and these are the ads for TV. Like I don't know if that's what it is or what, but yeah. I mean like that, again, if you can find a viable way to cover them up and not make it like see-through where I can see 92 ads in a square block, like then fine. Again, like I don't, whatever. But yeah, the present again, I don't know if it's technology or what, but like how it is presently is just brutal.
Oh, yeah. It's not
Very
fun.
ugly.
Um, we're getting close to the end of the episode here, so we will save the Zadina conversation for
Yeah, we
tomorrow's
might as well.
episode.
Yep.
But I did want to mention too, because as we were preparing to record, Seth Barton was taken off the IR and assigned to Grand Rapids. There's not really a conversation to be had, but hey, news and notes. We knew
Do
that
we
was going
have
to
a
happen.
replacement for Burt yet?
No, they didn't call anyone up.
Okay.
They have
So
3
that'll
days to
happen at
assess if that.
some point between now and
I'm not
Friday,
fully
I'd
convinced.
imagine.
I mean, what you have 13 forwards, and you have assuming Verona comes back for Friday, you have 13 forwards, and you have
Right.
7 D-man. So you don't actually need another guy up. You can
No.
carry another guy, but then you'll have to put him through waivers to get him back down, unless you bring up someone who's waiver exempt, like a Jonathan Berggren, rather.
Yeah, Berggren, we had that conversation we were texting about the other day. I think I lean with you on Berggren. We're like, they're just going to prioritize playing time. There's really no point to, unless they plan on playing him a lot. There's
Well,
really no
unless
point
Zadina is so bad that
to-
they're gonna give Berggren more minutes, and that there's a conversation for tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, I
Right?
guess. I don't think that, but like, that's certainly
They'd rather
did
have
in one
somebody.
game, 3 games in. So
And I mean, this is why you have guys like Zarnik and Matt Luff and Giovanni Smith down there in the A, because they're capable of coming up and playing NHL level minutes. I mean, the
right. So
depth.
that's who I was leaning to.
Yeah.
I think it's a Giovanni or Luff conversation. I think those
Mhm.
are the two that if they're gonna carry somebody, that there's not those aren't dudes that you're like, oh, we need to get them more playing time, whatever. Like what those guys are at this point.
Luff's a big
And
boy too, and he played. I thought he played pretty well in the preseason, so I wouldn't mind calling him up. Now, that's the thing too, is like, you're not really at risk. I'm not really afraid of losing those guys on waivers. I think if they would have they would have gotten taken off waiver,
yeah,
claimed off
Giovanni's
waivers
passed
already.
one, so
Yeah. So I'm not really afraid. And granted, injuries happen and people get desperate for depth.
for
But
sure.
when Stevie made these signings for, depth pieces, it's not just for like Dominic Kubalik and the third and fourth lines. I mean, he got depth in case guys got injured. He signed guys who are capable of eating up NHL minutes, and that's Zarnik, that's
Yep.
Luff. I mean,
Yep.
that's what those guys were signed for. That way, if injuries happen, you have guys coming up that aren't just, I mean, like last year, man, we had like Chase Pearson up. We had Chris Kulo up. I mean, guys who
Yeah.
normally probably wouldn't be getting NHL minutes were getting NHL minutes. Who else was there? He left. Oh, man, I'm drawing a blank. He's not with not Riley Piercy.
I was gonna
Oh,
say,
man.
are you talking about Piercy right now?
No. Oh, what was his name? He was with the Griffins, and he was an alternate captain with the Griffins, and then he left the Griffins and signed somewhere else as an alternate captain with them now. And I'm drawing a blank on the name, and we loved him. It was one of those things like we loved him because he was such an underdog type
Wait,
mentality.
Dan
Like,
Renouf?
we did love Dan Renouf, but not Dan Renouf. Oh man, it's
I'm just
driving
trying
me
to go
nuts.
through all the players you're not obviously not Hiroshi.
We literally, so this is the difference though, is we were calling up Grand Rapids Griffins. We were calling up AHL players last season. Now we're going to be calling up fringe NHL players. And it's super
yeah,
important.
it's great for depth.
If we need to. if the Red Wings need to. And I don't think they're at that point yet, because if Verona is able to come back on Friday, we'll still have 13 forwards and 7 defensemen.
Absolutely.
Hey, good conversation today, buddy. I'm glad I
Yeah.
got that off my chest. I've been thinking about it for a while, but we've been pretty busy.
I'm glad that you have a platform to where you can just yell about what makes you mad and people will listen.
That is ultimately what this is, isn't it?
It's pretty cool.
Until the Red Wings are good, and then we'll be talking about the things we love.
Well, we're already talking about things we love, honestly.
That's true. I don't talk about you enough, do I?
You told me earlier that you don't have fun because you have to deal with me. That was literally 30 minutes ago, by the way.
Yeah.
On air.
Yeah, but you know what they say about like you're mean to people that you like? Like if you have a crush on somebody, you bully
Thanks for
them.
making Locked On Red Wings your first listen ever.
Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Steel Roden and Flip Livingstone bring you the fantasy edge and keep you ahead of the competition with daily updates of news, analysis, and advice Monday through Friday. Available on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcasts. I work for Odyssey. Fun fact. So
You do.
we will be back tomorrow with a new episode. You already know a little bit what we're going to talk about. We'll bring some other stuff to the table as well. Same time, same place. See your team every day.
BetOnline.